Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, August 10th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya C. It's the news many will be happy to hear, especially if you're among those affected by the millions of gallons of Tijuana sewage that continues to flow and close our local beaches. Tonight, the mayor of one South Bay city has made a tentative deal to try and limit further damage. But will it work? KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman on the plan and the hope.
Repairs are continuing in Tijuana after a sewage rupture last week, but an estimated 288 million gallons of sewage has already hit the Tijuana River just north of the border, with some 32 million gallons per day flowing into the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant, more than the plant itself can actually handle.
That's raw sewage straight from the bowels, literally, of Tijuana, and that's polluting our beach.
Serge Dedina is the mayor of Imperial Beach, which has its shorelines under closure orders due to the sewage flows. Coronado is open for now, but there's warnings for Silver Strand Beach. Dedina says it will take a couple of years at least to stop these flows from happening. In the meantime, he's met with Baja California officials and says they have committed to emergency mitigation measures.
So doing what any other sewage treatment plant would do, chlorination, dredging, hopefully aerators. If you're a civil engineer, you understand what I'm talking about. Anything that will help reduce the impacts from that defunct environmental disaster.
An official from the International Boundary and Water Commission in San Diego says details are still being discussed with nothing yet finalized.
We're grateful to our colleagues in Baja California and the EPA and the IBWC for tentatively agreeing to that. We have to work out the details, but we continue to push for that. Because at the end of the day, they're dealing with a disaster, which is good. That's how they should operate. It's like when the cliffs crumble in Del Mar, San Diego goes to the rescue. And that's what happened here in this pipe rupture, but it's still killing us. And now we need to fix the source of pollution 6.5 miles south of the border and upgrade the entire Tijuana sewer system.
Sewage flows have closed much of Imperial Beach's shorelines this summer, something that Dedina says has been devastating for the community. He says federal officials have been better at communicating the impacts of the spills, but he wants to see immediate action.
Everyone's just been super bummed, super depressed, and frankly just mystified, like, wait a minute, there have been so many promises made, so many agreements, so many photos in the paper, tweets, et cetera, about this promise that's coming. And it just shows that this idea of delayism, this official bureaucratic delayism where things take so long to fix a problem, has to end.
Repairs on the rupture could be finished by this week. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
San Diego health officials are now using wastewater to track the spread of monkeypox, just like they do with COVID. Researchers at UC San Diego say they first detected monkeypox in mid-July at the Point Loma treatment plant, and since then, levels have been steadily rising. So far, 113 cases have been found in San Diego County, with more than 1,700 in California.
So it's a different kind of virus than COVID. It's a DNA virus, not an RNA virus. That being said, our wastewater monitoring has successfully been able to track this, and it correlates with increasing number of cases.
To date, all cases in San Diego have been in men, a majority who identify as gay or bisexual. But the virus can infect anyone, and Longhurst expects it to spread in other communities like those experiencing homelessness. It's transmitted through close contact and can cause incredibly painful rashes and lesions. Tonight, the unhoused in San Diego's East County have a new option, a new overnight safe parking site with additional services. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says it's one of East County's first solutions to the growing problem of homelessness.
Under the 67 freeway, just outside the city limits of El Cajon, a new safe parking program is officially launching for people living in their cars and looking to find permanent housing. Back in April, the North Magnolia Avenue site was a homeless encampment with hundreds of people and tents. Now, it's an overnight space to sleep for those with cars, according to Teresa Smith of Dreams for Change. Her organization was contracted to run the program.
So we will be parking at 17 households, so 17 vehicles, and it will be cars, no RVs.
County Supervisor Joel Anderson says the safe parking lot marks the first county-operated emergency shelter in the unincorporated county of San Diego.
This safe parking lot is an incredibly important step in the right direction towards solving the homeless issue. The program will provide these individuals with 2 hot meals a day, restrooms, hygiene facilities, 24/7 security, and a membership to the local YMCA.
The safe parking lot is open nightly from 5:30 p.m. through 7 a.m. the following morning, but it's not a walk-up site. Participants are referred by the county's homeless outreach workers.
No, so this is definitely low barrier. So families will be top priority. They, obviously want to get the kids off the streets and little ones and get them in a safe environment. And as far as what we mean by low barrier is that it literally is. We're looking for individuals that just want to move towards permanent housing.
The location can accommodate families and individuals that have running vehicles. Smith says the site will operate with a wait list. She says the county is also looking at other unincorporated areas for even larger safe parking lots. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
A new economic report out today is giving consumers a glimmer of hope. New numbers signal runaway inflation took a bit of a breather in July, but despite some improvement, prices are still high. Chris Nguyen is in Washington to break it all down.
Across the country, inflation remains hot, but recent price hikes are cooling off.
We're seeing a stronger labor market where jobs are booming and Americans are working, and we're seeing some signs that inflation may be beginning to moderate.
A key inflation report suggests that Americans are finally getting some relief after 19 straight months of rising prices.
It's hitting everything that we buy.
But business owners are still feeling the pinch.
There are times, and these are those times, you must raise prices to remain a supplier and remain in business.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics says consumer prices in July went up by 8.5% year over year compared to the 9.1% increase in June. Prices overall held steady month to month. Analysts say falling energy costs helped offset increases in other areas.
I hesitate to say we've hit the peak. What we really need to see is a streak of a few months where we're seeing sustained improvement across a much broader range of categories than what we're currently seeing.
Food costs went up slightly over the past month, but are now 10.9% higher than last year, the largest annual increase since May of 1979. The price of food at home also soaring.
Food prices is probably, the place where we didn't see as much progress as we'd like.
The Federal Reserve is expected to raise rates in September to keep prices under control and to avoid plunging the economy into a recession. In Washington, I'm Chris Nguyen, KPBS News.
San Diego County is following the national trend of falling gas prices. Today, the average for a gallon of regular gas is $5.38. That is down more than a penny from yesterday and the lowest price since March 7th. The average has decreased by nearly $1 since reaching a record $6.37 on June 15th. It's official. Today, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria signed the city's Climate Action Plan update into law. It commits to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. The plan calls for a number of initiatives to achieve this goal, and among them, phasing out 90% of fossil fuel use in buildings by 2035, offering 100% renewable electricity for all San Diego customers by the year 2030, and shifting half of all trips to walking, biking, or transit. San Diego is far behind on a goal from the previous climate plan, building more roundabouts. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the slow pace of construction has impacts on traffic safety and climate change.
Roundabouts have a couple of advantages. They slow down traffic, making streets safer for pedestrians and cyclists. And unlike stop signs or traffic lights, they keep cars moving through the intersection. Less stop and go means less gas turned into carbon dioxide.
Even though the speed limit is 25 miles per hour, that is not the speed that people tend to travel on this roadway.
Katie Matchett is an urban planner and president of the nonprofit Beautiful PB. We meet at a dangerous intersection in Pacific Beach where residents have been asking for safety improvements for years. The city says it will start building a roundabout here by March of next year at a cost of almost $3 million.
Some of these big roundabout projects, they are very costly. They take up a lot of space. They take some time to design, but there are other smaller, quick improvements that we can make that actually will help us reach some of our goals.
San Diego's 2015 Climate Action Plan set a goal of building 15 roundabouts by 2020, but the city built only 2. Advocates say quick-build roundabouts installed with paint and plastic barriers drilled into the street can be a cheaper and faster way to improve safety.
A quick-build project is a great way to show the community exactly what the benefit of these streetscape improvements are.
San Diego will need to pick up the pace and build 2 to 3 new roundabouts per year to meet its new goal of 33 new roundabouts by 2035. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Some good news for millions of veterans in need of more health care benefits. President Biden today signed the Pact Act to help veterans exposed to toxic fumes from burn pits. At one point, Senate Republicans blocked the bill, wanting amendments that would add cost limits, and that led to protests at the Capitol. A deal was finally reached and sent to the president. Mental health equals public safety. That was the message at a community event in Oceanside today, where guests learned about resources aimed at providing universal safety. More now from KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne.
Guests inside Oceanside Star Theater usually fill the seats to enjoy a show. But today, the community was invited to an event to learn more about mental health and public safety.
Today's event is to really bring people together in collaborative efforts to have a dialogue and problem solving and partnerships on how to improve society for all through the mental health language.
Oscarine Ortega is the founder of Lived Experiences, a North County organization that provides support to underserved communities. They put on the event and invited different speakers to talk about mental health and the barriers that prevent people from seeking help. Dr. Beto Vasquez was one of the speakers.
You know, in many cultures, including my own, if I were to tell somebody, hey, you need to go talk to somebody, that's almost like I just told them off, right? It's almost like I've said bad words or profanity to them, right?
He does community outreach for UC San Diego and encourages talking about mental health.
But the more we have these conversations out in public, the more we normalize, right, that mental health is just as important as your physical health.
Talking about mental health is one step, but having professionals in the field is another hurdle, says Dr. Beatriz Villarreal, another event speaker.
We have a huge need right now, mainly when a family or a person asks for help, for emotional help or therapy, and you want to send them for therapy, it's very hard to find somebody who is culturally sensitive, who understands where you're coming from, because it's not just like somebody who speaks Spanish. It's somebody who really understands where you're coming from.
Speakers shared different testimonies, and sitting through the presentation was Oceanside Chief of Police Fred Armijo.
In one sense, it made me wish that something like this could be something that more of my whole department can experience. Not because I think my department needs it, but everybody can benefit from it. But I would love to see the interactions amongst the folks here and the connectedness that could take place.
Armijo said mental health is an important topic to discuss, because the calls his department gets almost always have a mental health component to them. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
The judge who became the first Latina to serve on the California Supreme Court could make history again. Governor Newsom has nominated Patricia Guerrero as the next Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. Guerrero has deep ties to our region. She was raised by immigrants from Mexico in the Imperial Valley and served as an appellate judge in San Diego. Her nomination must be confirmed by the Commission on Judicial Appointments and then by voters in November. County leaders launched a new program today aimed at getting you outdoors. The goal of the Experience the Outdoors program is to highlight the county's 23 regional parks. It's also to break down cost, equipment, and training barriers that might exist.
You get to put aside the worry about the cost. You get to really just focus on being out the outdoors and connecting to nature. You got to take a pause from all these things happening around you. And it was just peaceful.
There's a First Timers series that gives lessons on how to build a tent, kayak, or fish. The program also offers a course on mountain biking, and all activities are free and the equipment provided.
Let's take a look at today's weather headlines. Well, the monsoon moisture is in full retreat, so decreasing monsoon moisture. That means storms more isolated. It'll still stay very warm and humid. And as we take a check on the end of the week, ooh, here we go, another moisture surge on the way, especially by Friday. Right now we go to the water vapor loop. There's the upper low that's turning our flow more towards the southwest, and the moisture is starting to lift a little bit farther away from the area, but you know, it's just not too far away. Temperatures tonight around 70, moonless sky, a beautiful night, mid-60s Oceanside, Escondido, Ramona, El Cajon, a low 72. Of course, it's warm in Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna, and Campo in the mid-60s. Here's our future cast for tomorrow. Well, looks like a pretty quiet day, but kind of see the hints of this moisture trying to creep in from the southeast, so there may be a stray storm out there in the high desert. And checking on that excessive rainfall outlook, notice just marginal for the mountains eastward through the deserts. Temperatures soaring. It's going to be a hot day in El Cajon, 100. Ramona's at 98. Borrego Springs, 108. Oceanside's in the low 80s and low 80s in San Diego. Checking on the excessive rainfall for Friday and a Friday night. Notice how the moisture kind of creeps west, but still just a marginal risk for any flooding. Checking on those temperatures. It stays warm, a little bit humid here near the coast. We're in the low to mid 80s. As we head inland, it's kind of hot. Temperatures will stay in the 90s. Could there be this stray storm, perhaps? In the mountains, better chances for those storms, that's for sure, from Friday into the weekend. And in the deserts, temperatures will be in the low hundreds here, and there will be a few storms on the prowl. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Fast food workers in California could get the right to collectively bargain under a bill moving through the state legislature. It would create a fast food sector council made up of labor and business representatives and overseen by the state. Its author, Democratic Assembly member Chris Holden, is a former restaurant franchisee, and he says that workers are often denied breaks, sick pay, and overtime. And while Holden says many franchise owners treat their workers well, not all of them do.
But those who aren't doing the right thing are going to tell their employees how to hold them accountable. That's why this bill is here.
Labor groups support the measure. Businesses and restaurant groups oppose it, arguing the bill would add more costs and regulations. Inflation is not just making your food and rent more expensive. For some Americans, the life-saving medicine that they need is now unaffordable. Gabe Cohen speaks with some of those families and the difficult decisions that they are having to face.
All of those are for my heart.
These are the medicines Angelina Scott can't live without.
This is a blood thinner.
For high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and an irregular heartbeat.
Don't take these, my heart will stop.
But with sky-high inflation and hundreds of dollars in monthly medical costs, this notary and her husband, a maintenance worker, are falling behind on their bills, staving off shutoff notices. So to cut costs, she's stopped taking medicine for her irritable bowel syndrome.
People, well, you can afford not to. No, literally, I cannot afford to. It makes me really sick. Why do I have to choose between living and living?
In June, U.S. healthcare costs were up 4.5% from the year before. And with the price of food, gas, rent, and utilities surging even higher, millions of Americans are struggling to afford the care they need.
What this leads people to do is have to make horrible trade-offs between paying for their medication or their diagnostic test or seeing their physician or their doctor and having to pay for basic costs of living, their gas, their food, their groceries, their child care.
A new survey from Gallup and West Health found roughly 2 in 5 adults, an estimated 98 million Americans, have delayed or skipped treatment, cut back on driving, utilities, and food, or borrowed money just to pay medical bills in the last 6 months. And 39% have major concerns about affording care in the coming months.
Inflation and its impact on healthcare are breaking families and breaking individuals, and we need to wake up and act.
Everything's went up. Everything but my paycheck.
71-year-old Libby Dancy is a caseworker for an organization that helps struggling seniors in Virginia, but she herself can't afford to retire.
I'll be working here probably until they find me laid out back there in my office.
A 3-time cancer survivor, she spends hundreds each month on critical medicine like heart pills, breathing treatments, and insulin. So she's tightening her budget, keeping her AC off in the summer heat, and foregoing her allergy meds, probiotics, and vitamins until payday.
What did that do to you physically?
Messed me up, messed my system up and everything, you know.
High inflation is squeezing most Americans, sending U.S. household debt to a record high, more than $16 trillion.
I feel like it's suffocating me slowly.
For some, the Budget Balancing Act grows more difficult by the day.
All those things are horrible, but how do I tough out trying to live?
And that was Gabe Cohen reporting. The Inflation Reduction Act passed by the Senate and expected to pass in the House this week would provide some health care reform. It would allow Medicare to negotiate some drug prices, cap insulin prices at $35 per month, and cap out-of-pocket expenses for seniors at $2,000. It also extends Affordable Care Act subsidies for 3 years.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, inflation slows, but the good news provides little relief to many low-income Americans. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
San Diego pickleball enthusiasts have found themselves in a bit of a sour situation. The game requires a special court, and there are few places to play in the city. As KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser shows us, this has led to drama on the courts.
You can hear it from the parking lot. Emanating from a Chula Vista park on a warm Thursday evening is the sound of hundreds of plastic pickleballs slamming into hard asphalt. Men and women, young and old, gathered to play the trendy sport that has exploded in popularity in recent years.
If you look at my contact list on my cell phone, I probably have 400 people I've met playing pickleball.
One of them is 71-year-old Mark Breezeboy, who switched to pickleball from tennis 10 years ago and never looked back. But these picklers have a, well, pickle.
I'm appalled at the fact that San Diego does not jump on the bandwagon and get into the pickleball swing.
Local picklers are led by Stefan Boyland, one of the founders of Pickleball SD. In pickleball, there are dinkers who make soft shots and bangers who drive the ball hard to overpower their opponents. In his dealings with the city, Boyland is definitely a banger.
We've gotten a lot of lip service, but we haven't gotten a lot of action. We still have 0 dedicated public pickleball courts in the city of San Diego. That's right, 0. You heard me right. We're about 5 years behind every other city.
Boyland clearly has a mission to bring pickleball to the masses. But like many before him who have attempted to get the city of San Diego to do anything in a timely fashion, Boyland is stymied. To build new courts, he needs meetings, plans, approvals, permits, and construction. Pickleball, he says, cannot wait. So Boyland rose up, staging what amounted to an Occupy tennis protest, or maybe a pickle-in.
You guys do know that you have to sign in and pay a fee, and it's for tennis only.
Last week, he and other picklers stormed the courts at Robb Field in Ocean Beach, set up their own pickleball net, and started to play. A tennis player called the police, and a dispute erupted over whether they had an active permit.
Get off this court!
Freedom of speech.
Go! Get out of here!
No charges were filed.
The city wants both of the sports to thrive, but not without hindering one over the other.
Tim Graham is a spokesman for the Parks Department and says the city has no plans to change the tennis courts at Robb Field to pickleball.
The city is trying to find ways to provide as many pickleball courts as possible without displacing other organizations, or to try and find them, to put them together as quickly as possible without building an entirely new facility.
Options include taking over unused shuffleboard courts. Apparently, there's no shuffleboard lobby in the city to protest, plus striping new pickleball courts on basketball or other hard surfaces. And the city has brought in a national expert to interview both sides and come up with a pickleball tennis peace treaty.
I understand that once people got into this sport, it's pretty addictive and people seem to really, really love it. I've never played it, so I don't know. But, you know, what the city's doing its best to provide these services as quickly as we can.
At noon on a recent Friday, only a few courts at Robb Field were being used by tennis players. While outsiders might wonder why they can't share tennis courts with pickleball, that just won't work, says Todd Sprigg.
If you play pickleball, it has a very different sound, okay? And so those sports are not necessarily compatible next to each other.
Plus, the lines on the court are different, the nets are different, and players would want the courts at the same time. Sprigg says he agrees. There is a need for more pickleball facilities in San Diego.
But cannibalizing tennis facilities when tennis is growing and has grown doesn't make any sense at all.
So the city is left working on a compromise that doesn't involve cannibalism. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
A great story from our own Claire Tregeser. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Tripulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.